Kate Hartwell counted the coins one last time, her fingers trembling in the October cold. 17 cents. That was the distance between her children and starvation. That was all that remained, but after 2,000 miles of running, after selling everything she owned, after watching her husband waste away and leave her with debts that would follow her to the grave. The Union Pacific train had just pulled into Silver Creek Station, belching steam into the frozen Montana air. Through the grimy window, Kate could see the town stretching out before her like a broken promise. 24 wooden buildings huddled against the vast sky. A saloon already leaking piano music at midday. A church with a crooked steeple. And beyond it all, mountains that looked like they could swallow a person whole. This was the end of the line, the last stop. Her 17 cents goodbye, Mama. Daniel's voice was steady, but she heard the fear underneath. Is this the place? Kate looked at her son. 11 years old and trying so hard to be the man of the family. His coat was 2 sizes too small, patched at the elbows with fabric from his father's old shirts. He carried their 2 carpet bags like they weighed nothing, though Kate knew they contained everything the Hartwell family had left in this world. 1 change of clothes each. Her mother's Bible, Thomas's pocket watch, which she hadn't been able to bring herself to sell, Daniel's school books, water-damaged but precious. This is it, Kate said. She didn't move yet. Couldn't. The weight of finality pressed down on her shoulders like the Montana cold. It's small, Lily whispered, pressing closer to Kate's side. She clutched her doll rose to her chest. The doll was made of rags, one button eye hanging loose, but Lily loved it with the fierce devotion only a 5-year-old could muster. Smaller than the other towns. Small can be good, sweetheart. Small means people notice when you need help. But Kate knew that wasn't always true. Small also meant people noticed when you were desperate, when you were running out of options, when you were one bad decision away from watching your children starve. Small meant nowhere to hide. End of the line, ma'am. The conductor appeared at her elbow, impatient. Silver Creek, Montana territory. Kate gathered Lily into her arms, feeling how light the girl had become. 5 years old and light as a bird. That wasn't right. Children shouldn't be that light. Come on, Daniel. Her son grabbed their bags and jumped down first, then turned to help her. Such a gentleman. Such a good boy. Thomas would have been proud. The cold hit her like a fist. 28 degrees and dropping fast. October in Montana was nothing like October in Boston. This cold had teeth. The first snow of the season was already falling, fat flakes that caught in Lily's dark hair and made her giggle despite her fear. Mrs. Hartwell? Kate turned to find a plump woman in a flour-dusted apron hurrying toward her from the general store. Martha Whitmore. They had exchanged exactly 3 letters over the past month, each one taking 2 weeks to arrive. Mrs. Whitmore, thank you for meeting us. Lord have mercy. Martha's eyes swept over them with the practiced assessment of a woman who had seen hard times and survived them. Look at you 3, frozen half to death already. When did you last eat real food? I mean, not whatever scraps you've been managing. Kate's pride wanted to lie. Her children's hollow cheeks wouldn't let her. Yesterday morning, some bread we saved from Billings. That's enough. Martha took Lily right out of Kate's arms before she could protest. Tom, come help with these bags. We've got hungry children here. A thin man emerged from the store. He walked with a slight limp, favoring his left leg. Tom Whitmore, former blacksmith, Kate remembered from the letters. Wounded at Gettysburg, spent 3 months in a Union hospital, came home to find his shop burned down by Confederate sympathizers. He took one look at Daniel, struggling with the carpet bags, and relieved him of both without a word. Inside, Martha ordered, all of you, there's stew on the stove, and I won't hear any arguments. The warmth of the general store hit Kate like a wave. She had to grab the counter to keep from swaying. When had she last been truly warm? St. Louis, maybe. Before they ran out of money for decent lodging? Before they started sleeping in church basements and abandoned barns? Sit. Martha pointed to a table near the pot-bellied stove. Eat, then we'll talk. The stew was simple. Beef, potatoes, carrots, onions. But Kate had to force herself not to cry at the first bite. Lily ate like she'd forgotten food existed, her small hands shaking as she lifted the spoon. Daniel tried to pace himself, tried to maintain some dignity, but his hunger betrayed him. She poured coffee for Kate without asking, thick and black and strong. How long since your husband passed? Nearly 3 years. Kate kept her voice steady. She'd had practice. Thomas Hartwell. He was a civil engineer in Boston. Tuberculosis took him in the spring of 1882. Left me with 2 children and more debts than I knew existed. And you've been traveling since, working our way west. Kate set down her spoon. Seamstress in Philadelphia. Laundress in Pittsburgh. Cook in St. Louis. I've done everything honest a woman can do, Mrs. Whitmore. Everything. And it's not enough. The debts keep following. The creditors won't stop. So we ran. You came here because it was as far as your money would take you. Kate nodded. And because you mentioned in your letter that there might be work. Martha exchanged a glance with her husband that Kate couldn't read. There's work, Martha said slowly. But the work I mentioned, it's not simple. I'm not afraid of hard work. It's not the work I'm worried about, dear. Martha leaned forward, lowering her voice. You asked about positions available. Housekeeping, cooking, that sort of thing. And there is one position. But the man who needs it, he's not easy. I've worked for difficult people before. Not like James Blackwood, you haven't. The name meant nothing to Kate, but she saw Tom Whitmore wince slightly. Who is James Blackwood? Martha sat back, folding her arms. James Blackwood owns the biggest ranch in Silver Creek Valley, 800 acres. Good water rights. Successful operation. He made his fortune in the Colorado silver mines back in 82, 83. Over $1 million before he was 35. Came up here 4 years ago, bought the best land in the territory, built himself a mansion, 15 rooms, running water. Most impressive house north of Helena. Then why would he need a housekeeper? Kate asked. He doesn't think he does. That's the problem. Martha's voice dropped even lower, but winter's coming, and last winter nearly killed him. Blizzard caught him out checking fence lines. Took him 3 days to get home. Frostbite on both hands, nearly lost 2 fingers. He couldn't work properly for 2 months. If Tom hadn't found him, he'd have frozen to death out there. If he nearly died, surely he'd want help, Kate said. You'd think so, but James Blackwood has turned down every woman in this county, every single one. Sally Johnson brought him fresh bread 3 times a week for a year. He paid her for the bread and told her not to come back. Widow Patterson offered to cook and clean for just room and board. He said he'd rather starve. Mary O'Brien, prettiest girl in the territory, practically threw herself at him. He told her he had no use for pretty. Kate felt something cold settle in her stomach that had nothing to do with the October wind. Why? Nobody knows for certain. Martha's voice softened with genuine sadness. There was a woman once, years back, Margaret Reed. They were engaged to be married. James built that whole house for her 15 rooms, a nursery on the 3rd floor, everything perfect. And then what? She got pregnant, summer of 1881. James was over the moon, started building a cradle by hand, carving it himself. But the birth went wrong. Margaret died. The baby died. Both of them gone in one terrible night. Kate's breath caught. She knew that pain. Not the same pain, but the shape of it. The way grief could hollow you out until there was nothing left but the shell of who you used to be. James buried them in the ranch cemetery, Martha continued, under a cottonwood tree by the creek. And then he buried himself in that house, alone for 4 years. Won't let anyone close. Won't hire help. Won't even talk to folks unless he has to. Just works himself to exhaustion every day and sits alone in that big house every night. So he's bitter, Kate said. He's more than bitter. He shut himself off from everyone. Not kindness, not charm, not desperation. Women have tried everything. He just turns them all away. Kate looked at her children. Lily was scraping the last of the stew from her bowl with her finger. Daniel was eyeing the breadbasket like he wanted to ask for more, but didn't dare. What does he look like? Kate asked. This James Blackwood. Why does that matter? Because if I'm going to propose a business arrangement to a man who hates women, I'd like to know who I'm dealing with. Martha's eyebrows rose. Business arrangement? I'm not looking for a husband, Mrs. Whitmore. Kate's voice hardened. I buried a good one. I'm looking for survival for my children. If this James Blackwood needs help and I need shelter, then we have something to offer each other. Romance doesn't enter into it. Martha was quiet for a long moment. Then she laughed, a short surprise sound. Well, that's different. Will you tell me where to find him? You can't just walk up to Blackwood Ranch, dear. It's 7 miles out of town and you've got 2 children and no horse. Then where can I find him in town? Tom Whitmore spoke for the first time since they had entered. He comes in every week for supplies. Been doing it for years. Every Thursday, like clockwork. Always comes just before noon. Loads up his wagon. Doesn't talk to anybody more than necessary. Then heads back before dark. Kate stood up. Where are you going? Martha asked. To wait, in this cold? With those children? I'll leave them here if you'll allow it. What I have to say to Mr. Blackwood isn't for young ears. Martha studied her for a long moment. What exactly are you planning to say? Whatever I have to. The general store porch gave Kate a clearer view of the main road. She wrapped her coat tighter. The same coat she'd worn for 3 years, patched so many times it was more thread than original fabric. And she waited. The cold seeped through the soles of her boots, through her thin stockings, through every layer she owned. But she'd felt colder. She'd felt hungrier. She'd felt more desperate. That was a lie. She'd never felt more desperate than this. 17 cents, that's what she had left. 17 cents and 2 children who trusted her to keep them alive. 2 children who'd already lost their father, their home, their security. 2 children who'd followed her across 1,000 miles of broken promises because she told them it would be better. It had to be better. She would make it better or she would die trying. The sound of wagon wheels on frozen ground made her straighten. She'd been standing so still for so long that her joints ached when she moved. A wagon appeared around the bend in the road. Single horse, sturdy Morgan stallion, black as midnight. A practical farm wagon, loaded with supplies. And driving it, a man who looked it exactly like someone who'd spent 4 years building walls around himself. He was bigger than she'd expected. Broad shoulders, strong hands, the kind of frame that came from hard physical labor, not inherited wealth. His face was weathered but not old. Mid-30s maybe, dark hair showing beneath a battered Stetson, streaked with premature gray at the temples, a neatly trimmed beard, a scar across his left temple. Even from this distance, she could see the coldness in his expression. How closed, how absolutely certain they wanted nothing to do with anyone. He wore a heavy black wool coat, Union Army surplus from the look of it, good leather boots, worn but well-maintained. A Colt .45 on his hip, worn with the easy familiarity of a man who knew how to use it. Everything about him said competence, capability, and complete isolation. He pulled up outside the general store and climbed down from the wagon without a glance in her direction. Tied the horse to the post with economical movements. Started toward the door. Kate stepped into his path. He stopped. Didn't step back. Didn't move around her. Just stopped and waited like she was an obstacle that would remove itself if he was patient enough. Mr. Blackwood. It wasn't a question. She'd learned to read people years ago, back when she was a teacher in Boston, when knowing which parent would be difficult and which would be supportive could save her hours of trouble. This man carried his name like a weight, ma'am. His voice was rough from disuse. You're in my way. I know. I intend to be. Something flickered in those cold eyes. Surprise, maybe, or irritation. I don't know you. No, you don't. Kate kept her voice steady. My name is Catherine Hartwell. Kate, I arrived on the noon train with my 2 children. We have no money, no food, and nowhere to go. Whitmore's runs a boarding house. Try there. He moved to step around her. Kate moved with him. The boarding house costs money, Mr. Blackwood. I just told you I don't have any. Then the church. Reverend Morrison helps folks down on their luck. Reverend Morrison helps folks for a few days. A week if they're lucky. I have 2 children, Mr. Blackwood. I need more than a week. His jaw tightened. Look, ma'am, whatever you're selling, I'm not buying. Whatever you're offering, I'm not interested. I've got supplies to get and a long ride home. So if you'll excuse me, I'm not offering anything. He paused. What? I'm not offering. I'm proposing. That's the same thing. No, it isn't. Kate took a breath. This was it. An offer can be refused. A proposal demands a response. For the first time, James Blackwood really looked at her. Not through her, not past her, at her. Say what you came to say then. You need help on your ranch. Winter's coming and last year nearly killed you. His expression didn't change, but she saw his hands tense. Mrs. Whitmore talks too much, Miss Williams. Whitmore cares about the people in this valley, including you, whether you want her to or not. Kate pressed on before he could interrupt. I need shelter for my children, a safe place to spend the winter, food, warmth, a roof that doesn't leak. Lots of people need those things, but not everyone can give you what you need in return. She stepped closer, close enough to see the gold flecks in his gray-blue eyes, close enough to see the old frostbite scars on his hands. I can cook, clean, mend, preserve food, tend animals, doctor minor injuries, manage a household through the hardest conditions. I raised 2 children through poverty that would break most people, and I did it without ever begging, stealing, or compromising my integrity. Impressive speech. You practice it on the stage. I practiced it every day of my life, Mr. Blackwood. Every day I've had to convince someone that I was worth keeping around, that my children were worth feeding, that we deserved a chance. His eyes flickered to the store window where Daniel and Lily were visible, watching with anxious faces. Those your kids? Yes. How old? Daniel's 11, Lily's 5. Young enough to need a stable home, old enough to help with chores. Kate's voice hardened. Old enough to understand that life isn't fair and survival isn't pretty, but we do what we have to do anyway. James Blackwood was silent for a long moment. The wind picked up, driving ice crystals against their faces. Kate didn't flinch. She'd felt worse. You said you were proposing, he said finally. Propose what exactly? A business arrangement. Nothing more, nothing less. Kate spoke clearly, letting every word carry weight. I keep your house, cook your meals, mend your clothes. My children and I live in your home through the winter. In exchange, you provide room and board, food, shelter, warmth. When spring comes, we reassess. If it's not working, we leave. No harm done. No harm done, he repeated flatly. You think it's that simple? I think it's exactly that simple if we both want it to be. And if I say no, Kate felt the cold wrap around her heart. Then I walk back into that store and I figure out something else. Because that's what I do, Mr. Blackwood. I figure things out. I've been figuring things out for 2 years. Ever since I buried my husband and discovered that the life I thought I had was built on debts and lies. She took another step closer. Close enough that a proper lady would have stepped back. She wasn't a proper lady anymore. She was a mother with 17 cents and 2 hungry children. But before you say no, let me ask you something. And I'd appreciate an honest answer. His eyes narrowed. What? Kate held his gaze. Do you want a wife, or do you just want another winter alone? The question hit him like she'd slapped him. She saw it in the way his whole body tensed, in the way his breath caught, in the way those cold eyes suddenly weren't cold at all, but burning with something that might have been anger, or might have been fear, or might have been recognition of a truth he'd been running from for 4 years. That's none of your business. Maybe not, but it's the question you need to answer. Kate didn't back down. I'm not asking to be your wife, Mr. Blackwood. I'm not asking for love or romance or promises. I'm asking for a roof over my children's heads and a chance to earn our keep. That's all. If that's all, then why the question you asked? The question I asked is the same one you've been avoiding for 4 years. Kate's voice softened but didn't waver. Every woman in this county that has tried to give you what they thought you wanted, charm, beauty, home cooking, whatever they imagined would thaw your frozen heart, and you turned them all down because none of them asked the right question, which is, what do you actually need? The silence stretched between them. Around them, Silver Creek went on with its business. Men walking to the saloon, women shopping at the store, children chasing each other through the muddy street, none of them paying attention to the standoff happening right in front of them. You don't know me, James said finally. His voice was rougher now. You don't know what I need. You're right. I don't know you, but I know loneliness. I know what it looks like when it's been carved into a person so deep they've forgotten what anything else feels like. Kate paused. I also know the difference between choosing to be alone and being afraid of anything else. I'm not afraid. Asone. Then say no. She stepped back, giving him room. Say no and walk past me. Get your supplies and go home to your empty house and spend another winter talking to yourself because there's no one else to talk to. That's your choice, Mr. Blackwood. It's always been your choice. He didn't move. But if you're even a little bit tired of that life, if some part of you remembers what it felt like to have voices in your house and people who counted on you and a reason to come home that wasn't just chores and silence, then maybe we should talk. The wind howled around them. Snow began to fall harder now, not gentle flakes, but driving needles of ice. The first real snow of the season. The storm everyone had been predicting for days. You're either the bravest woman I've ever met, James said slowly, or the craziest. Probably both. Desperation does that to a person. This isn't desperation. This is. He searched for the word. Calculation. You planned this, researched me, practiced what you'd say. Yes. The honesty seemed to surprise him. You're not going to pretend it was spontaneous? Why would I? I have 2 children to feed and 17 cents to my name. Spontaneous is a luxury I can't afford. Kate lifted her chin. I'm not ashamed of being prepared, Mr. Blackwood. I'm not ashamed of doing whatever it takes to keep my children alive. If that makes me calculating, then I'll be calculating. If it makes me manipulative, then I'll be manipulative. But I won't apologize for fighting to survive. I didn't ask you to apologize. No, you're trying to find a reason to say no, something wrong with me that justifies walking away. She shook her head. You won't find it. I'm not hiding anything. I'm exactly what I appear to be. A widow with 2 children and no options. The question isn't whether I'm worthy of your help. The question is whether you're capable of giving it. Something shifted in his face. She couldn't read it. Anger, respect, recognition. She didn't know. 1 hour, he said abruptly. What? There's a coffee house on 3rd Street. 1 hour. We'll talk properly, without half the town listening. Kate glanced around for the first time. She noticed the faces in windows, the people who'd stopped on the boardwalk, the attention they'd attracted. Will you be there? I said I would. People say a lot of things. His jaw tightened. I don't. If I say I'll be somewhere, I'll be there. 1 hour. Don't be late. He walked past her into the store. The door swung shut between them. Kate stood in the falling snow, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her temples. She'd done it. She'd gotten him to listen, to agree to talk. But she hadn't wanted anything yet. Not really. 1 hour of conversation wasn't shelter. It wasn't safety. It wasn't food for her children or warmth against the coming winter. It was just a chance. She'd built her whole life on chances. Chances that failed. Chances that broke her heart. Chances that left her poorer and more desperate than before. But she kept taking them because the alternative was giving up. And Kate Hartwell had forgotten how to give up somewhere between burying her husband and selling her mother's wedding ring. She turned and walked back into the store. Martha Whitmore was waiting, her face a mixture of shock and something that might have been admiration. I heard, Martha said. Well, part of it. Enough. He's agreed to talk in 1 hour. At the coffee house on 3rd Street. And you're going to go? Kate looked at her children. Lily was pressed against the window, her breath fogging the glass. Daniel stood with his arms crossed, trying to look protective, and only looking young. Yes, I'm going. Alone, it's the only way he'll talk honestly, without worrying about what the children might hear, or what the town might gossip about. Martha shook her head slowly. You're either going to save that man or destroy him. Maybe both. I'm just trying to save my children. That's what I mean, dear. That's what I mean. The hour passed slowly and too quickly at once. Kate washed her face in the basin Martha provided, tidied her hair as best she could, brushed the road dust from her coat. Small things, pointless things. But they gave her hands something to do while her mind raced through every possible outcome of the conversation ahead. Mama, Daniel caught her arm as she was preparing to leave. What if he says no? Then we figure out something else. What else is there? It was a fair question, an honest question, the kind of question she'd been trying not to ask herself. I don't know yet, she said, but we'll find it. She cupped his face in her hands. We've always found something, haven't we? Yes, ma'am. Then trust me one more time. Can you do that? He nodded, but his eyes were too old for 11. Too knowing. Take care of your sister. I'll be back before dark. The coffee house was nearly empty at this hour, just a few miners taking late lunch, hunched over their cups with the exhausted silence of men who worked underground. James Blackwood sat at a corner table, his back to the wall. An old military habit. He'd ordered black coffee for himself. 3 cups of hot chocolate sat waiting, steam rising in lazy spirals. Kate slid into the chair across from him. Daniel and Lily followed, moving with the careful quiet of children who'd learned when to be invisible. James looked at them with something complicated in his eyes. Not quite welcome, not quite rejection, something in between. You came, Kate said. I said I would. They sat in silence for a moment. 2 strangers with nothing in common except proximity and need, in 17 cents that stood between survival and death. Your husband, James said without preamble. How did he die? Tuberculosis. It took him slowly, then all at once. He was sick for a year before we knew how serious it was. Another 6 months before he couldn't work anymore. Then 3 months of watching him fade until there was nothing left to fade. That's hard. Yes, Kate's voice didn't waver. She'd told this story too many times for it to hurt the way it once had. And after I discovered he'd borrowed money to pay his medical bills. Money we didn't have. Money that came due the week after his funeral. James was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry, don't be. You didn't cause it. Kate took a sip of her chocolate. It was good, better than she'd tasted in months. The debt did. What debt? Thomas borrowed from his firm's escrow accounts. $450. For experimental treatments insurance wouldn't cover. He thought he'd beat it, replace the money. He didn't beat it. Daniel shifted in his seat. Oh, and sweetie, Lily whispered. Take Maya and go look at the pastries. Daniel, sweetie, Kate said quietly. Take Lily and go look at the pastries, but stay where I can see you. The children left. James watched them go. Then he turned back to Kate. The firm reported me to the Bar Association, she continued. I surrendered my teaching certificate rather than fight. Lost the apartment, the furniture, everything. The creditors kept coming. We ran. Why not declare bankruptcy and spend 2 years in court while my children live where? We'd be separated. Foster care. Kate's voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. I won't lose them. So you ran across the country for them. I'd run across the world. James looked at her with something that might have been respect. Your son, Daniel, he looks at you like you're holding the world together with your bare hands. I am. And Lily? She's young. She doesn't understand most of what's happening. She understands enough. Kate's voice softened. All children really need is to feel safe, to feel wanted, to know that someone will protect them no matter what. I can give them the first 2, but I can't protect them from a Montana winter with 17 cents and no shelter. 17 cents. James repeated it like he was testing the weight of the words. That's what you have left? Not enough for another stage ticket? Not enough for a week at the boarding house? Just enough to make sure I can't run anymore, even if I wanted to. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe. The understanding of someone who'd been trapped by circumstances beyond their control. The house has 3 bedrooms, he said slowly. I only use 1. The other 2 have been empty since I built them. Mr. Blackwood, I'm not agreeing to anything yet. He held up a hand. I'm just telling you what exists. 3 bedrooms. A kitchen with a stove that heats most of the house. A root cellar full of preserves and vegetables. A smokehouse with enough meat to last until spring. That sounds like a home. It sounds like a building with food in it. A home requires. He stopped. It requires things I don't have. What things? People. Noise. Complications. He almost spat the last word. The kind of entanglements that make a man vulnerable. That give the world leverage against him. You think having people in your house makes you weak? I think it gives others power over me that I don't want to give. Kate took another step toward him, close enough now to see the lines around his eyes, the gray at his temples, the tension in his jaw. Mr. Blackwood, James, she used his first name deliberately. I've had power over men before. Not by choice, but because that's how the world works when you're a woman alone. I've had to smile when I wanted to scream. Say yes when I meant no. Pretend things were fine when they were falling apart. And I'm tired of it. What do you want? All I want now is an honest arrangement with an honest man. You give me shelter. I give you service. We keep our hands to ourselves and our expectations clear. No power games, no manipulation, just two people helping each other survive. You make it sound simple. Because it is simple. We're the ones who complicate things with fear and distrust and memories of people who hurt us. Kate softened her voice. I'm not Margaret. I'm not going to disappear. I have nowhere to disappear to. That's not exactly reassuring. It's honest. I'd rather give you honest than reassuring. The snow was falling heavier now, accumulating on the windows, turning the world white and quiet. James stared into his coffee for a long time. Then he said, 1 month, Kate's breath caught. 1 month trial, you work. I provide room and board. At the end of the month, we decide together whether to continue through winter. He paused. If it's not working, I'll pay your stage fare to wherever you want to go. That's generous. That's practical. If you leave, I don't want you stranded in Silver Creek, causing talk and trouble. And if it is working, then we negotiate terms for the winter. Spring comes, we reassess again. His eyes held hers. No promises, Mrs. Hartwell. No expectations beyond what we explicitly agree to. And no, he stopped. No what? No getting attached. His voice was hard. Not you to me, not your children to the ranch, not anyone to anything. This is a business arrangement. It stays a business arrangement, understood? Kate wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that he couldn't control what people felt, that her children would get attached whether he liked it or not, that she might already be getting attached to the idea of him, to the possibility he represented. But she swallowed all of it. Understood. Good. He moved toward his horse. I'll pick you up tomorrow at dawn. Whitmore's store. Have your things ready. Tomorrow, the weather's turning. Need to get you settled before the real snow hits. He paused. Tell Tom to put your boarding tonight on my account. One night won't break me. Before Kate could respond, he was on his horse and riding away, leaving her standing in the falling snow, with a chance she wasn't sure she deserved. But she'd take it. She'd take it and make it work and keep her children safe. And if that meant living with a man who'd built walls around his heart, well, she'd broken through walls before. The ride back to the store felt shorter than the walk out. Or maybe she was just lighter. Hope did that to a person, made everything feel more bearable, even when the outcome was still uncertain. Martha Whitmore was waiting on the store porch, a shawl wrapped around her shoulders and worry written across her face. Well, 1 month trial, Kate said. He's coming for us at dawn. Martha's eyes widened. He agreed? James Blackwood agreed to take someone into his home? He agreed to try. That man hasn't let anyone past his property line in 4 years. And you got him to agree after one conversation. Martha shook her head slowly. What did you say to him? Kate climbed the steps, her legs unsteady from cold and relief. I asked him what he needed instead of telling him what I could give. And that worked? It worked well enough. Kate looked toward the store where her children's faces pressed against the window. It's just a chance, Mrs. Whitmore. 1 month. A lot can go wrong in 1 month. A lot can go right too, Martha said. Kate wanted to believe that, wanted to let herself hope that this time, finally she'd found a place that could become home. But she'd hoped before, believed before, trusted before, and every time the world had found a way to take it all away. So she pushed the hope down, locked it somewhere safe where it couldn't hurt her, and walked into the store to tell her children that tomorrow they were going to a ranch. That tomorrow maybe their running would stop. That tomorrow she couldn't let herself think beyond tomorrow. Not yet. Not until she knew if James Blackwood would keep his word. But as she held her children that night, listening to them breathe in the warmth of the boarding house room, Kate allowed herself one small moment of something that felt almost like peace. Tomorrow she'd find out if it was real. Tomorrow everything would change. For better or worse, tomorrow was coming, and Kate Hartwell would be ready. Dawn came gray and cold, the sky heavy with clouds that promised more snow. Kate had been awake for hours, checking and rechecking their meager belongings, making sure the children were ready. Everything they owned fit into 2 carpet bags. It seemed impossible that a life could be reduced to so little. But here was the evidence. 3 changes of clothes, Thomas's pocket watch, her mother's Bible, Daniel's school books, Lily's doll Rose, Mama. Daniel stood by the window, his breath fogging the glass. There's a wagon coming. Kate's stomach clenched. He'd come. Part of her had expected him to change his mind overnight, to send word that he'd reconsidered, that the arrangement was off. But there he was, driving his wagon down the main street of Silver Creek, his face set in that same closed expression she remembered from yesterday. Get your things, she told the children. Both of you. We're leaving. Lily clutched her doll tighter. Is the man nice, Mama? He's fair. That's better than nice sometimes. They met him outside the boarding house. James Blackwood didn't climb down from the wagon, just sat there holding the reins, watching them approach with eyes that gave nothing away. The black stallion Sherman stamped impatiently in the cold. Mrs. Hartwell, Mr. Blackwood, you're prompt. I said I would be. Something flickered across his face. Approval maybe, or just surprise that she'd kept her word. Put your bags in the back. The boy can ride there too. You and the girl up front. Daniel bristled at being called boy, but Kate shot him a look that silenced any protest. They loaded their carpet bags, pitifully light, pitifully few, and climbed aboard. The wagon started moving before Kate was fully settled. James Blackwood, it seemed, didn't believe in wasting time. 7 miles, he said without looking at her. Take about an hour in this weather. Longer if the snow picks up. I understand. House has been empty a long time. I've kept it clean enough, but it's not. He paused. It's not what you're probably used to. Mr. Blackwood, Kate kept her voice level. I've slept in barns and abandoned sheds and once in a church basement with rats. Whatever your house is, it's better than that. He glanced at her then, something unreadable in his eyes. Rats? St. Louis? The church was supposed to be a refuge for families in need. Turned out the need was greater than the refuge. Kate kept her voice matter of fact. We left after 2 nights. Daniel killed 3 rats with a board he found. He was 9. 4 rats, Mama. Daniel's voice carried forward from the back of the wagon. You always forget the one behind the altar. James's hands tightened on the reins, but he said nothing. They rode in silence for a while. The only sounds were the creak of the wagon and the soft whisper of falling snow. Lily had fallen asleep against Kate's shoulder, exhausted from a night of anxious excitement. The boy, James said finally. Daniel, he any good with work? He's willing. That counts for more than skill at his age. Can he follow instructions? Better than most adults I've known. James was quiet for another moment. I could use help with the stock. Feeding, watering, mucking stalls. Nothing too heavy, but it needs doing twice a day. He'd be grateful for the chance to be useful. It's not about gratitude. It's about work getting done. I understand. Do you? He turned to look at her fully. This isn't charity, Mrs. Hartwell. I'm not taking you in because I feel sorry for you. I'm taking you in because I need help and you're offering it. The moment that arrangement stops working, the moment you become more trouble than you're worth, we're done. You've made that clear. Have I? Because women have a way of hearing what they want to hear instead of what's being said. Kate felt her temper flare, but she controlled it. Mr. Blackwood, I've spent 2 years having men explain to me what women do and don't understand. Landlords who thought I couldn't comprehend that rent was due. Employers who assumed I needed simple words and simpler tasks. Creditors who believed I was too delicate to face hard truths. She kept her voice level. I buried my husband, lost my home, and kept my children alive across 1,000 miles of hostile territory. I understand things just fine. The silence that followed was different. Charged. Fair enough, James said finally. I won't explain things twice. Good. Because I won't need you to. They crested a hill and Kate saw the ranch for the first time. Her breath caught despite herself. It was larger than she'd expected. A main house, solid and well-built, 3 stories tall with smoke rising from the chimney. A massive barn that could hold 12 horses. Outbuildings scattered across the property. A smokehouse, a chicken coop, what looked like a workshop. And beyond it all, acres of land stretching toward the mountains, covered now in fresh snow that sparkled in the weak morning light. This is yours? 800 acres. Built it from nothing. It's substantial. It's work. Every acre of it, every building, every fence post, work that never ends. I'm not afraid of work. So you keep saying. He guided the wagon toward the house. Let's see if it's true. The house was cold when they entered, the fire having burned low during James's absence. Kate immediately moved to tend it, but he stopped her. "I'll handle the fire. You get settled." He showed them through quickly, his voice clipped and efficient. "First room on the left is yours and the girls. Second room is for the boy. Mine's at the end of the hall. That door stays closed." "Understood." "Kitchen's through there. Root cellars under the floor. There's a hatch by the back door. Privy's out back, but there's chamber pots in each room for nights. Pump works most of the time, but if it freezes, there's a barrel of water by the stove." Kate absorbed the information, already cataloging what she saw. The house was clean, as he'd said, but it was also empty. Not just of people, of life. No curtains on the windows, no rugs on the floors, no pictures on the walls. Just bare functionality, like a tool rather than a home. "The other rooms," she said carefully, "the ones you said were empty. Were they always empty?" His jaw tightened. "They were supposed to be for," he stopped. "It doesn't matter. They're empty. Have been since I built the place. Since Margaret left." Kate thought but didn't say. She could see it in his eyes, the pain he was trying to hide. The nursery he'd built that had never held a child. The rooms meant for a family that never came. "Mr. Blackwood." "James." The word came out rough, almost unwilling. "If you're going to be living under my roof, you might as well use my name." "James, then. And I'm Kate." He nodded once sharply, then turned toward the door. "I've got stock to tend. Boy, Daniel, you come with me. Time to learn what you're in for." Daniel scrambled to follow, his face eager despite his attempts to look serious. Kate watched them go, then turned to survey her new domain. The kitchen was large, well equipped with a cast-iron stove that looked expensive. Pots and pans hung from hooks. A long wooden table that could seat 8. Cupboards full of dishes. But everything was covered in a fine layer of dust. Mama. Lily had woken up, her eyes wide as she took in the unfamiliar space. "Are we going to live here?" "For a while, sweetheart. Would you like to see our room?" The room was spare but adequate. A large bed that could fit both of them. A chest of drawers. A small table by the window. The window itself faced east, catching what little light filtered through the clouds. "It's big," Lily whispered. "It is, and warm. Can we stay?" "We're going to try very hard to stay, Lily. But you need to understand, we have to earn our place here. This isn't a gift. It's a trade." Lily nodded solemnly. "I can help. I can be quiet and good and not cause trouble." Kate's heart broke a little at how easily her daughter promised to disappear. "You don't have to be quiet, sweetheart. You just have to be helpful." "There's a difference." "What's the difference?" "Quiet means hiding. Helpful means being part of things." Kate knelt down to meet her daughter's eyes. "I want you to be part of things here. Can you do that?" "I'll try. That's all anyone can do." Kate spent the next hour exploring the house, taking inventory of what existed and what was needed. The kitchen was well stocked with basics: flour, salt, sugar, dried beans. The root cellar was impressive, filled with preserved vegetables and fruits from a garden that must have taken considerable effort to maintain alone. She found dishes in the cupboards, pots and pans, basic utensils, everything functional, nothing decorative. A house built by a man who cared about survival and nothing else. When James and Daniel returned from the barn, Kate had a simple meal ready. Soup made from preserved vegetables. Bread she'd found in the pantry, a bit stale but edible when toasted. Coffee strong enough to stand a spoon in. "You didn't have to cook," James said, stamping snow from his boots. "I'm here to work." "Cooking is work," he grunted, which she was beginning to understand was his version of acknowledgement, and sat down at the table. Daniel followed, his face flushed from cold, but his eyes bright. "Mama, you should see the horses. There's a bay mare that Mr. Blackwood, that James, says I can learn to ride. And the cattle. There must be 50 head, maybe more. And the barn has these mechanisms, pulleys and things, for lifting hay bales. It's ingenious." "Eat first," Kate said. "Talk after." Daniel fell silent, but his excitement was palpable. Even Lily caught it, peppering her brother with whispered questions while they ate. James watched them with an expression Kate couldn't read. Not hostile exactly, more like a man observing something he didn't quite understand. "The boy did well," he said finally. "Followed instructions, didn't complain, I told you he was willing. Willing and able aren't the same thing, James paused. He's able too. He'll need warmer clothes. What he's got won't last a week out here. I know. Kate's voice was tight. I was hoping to earn enough to buy fabric. I can sew. There's a trunk in the storage room. Old clothes from. He stopped. Just old clothes. Might be something that fits him. Check after supper. Old clothes from Margaret's time, Kate thought. Probably things he'd bought for the children they were supposed to have. Thank you. It's practical. Can't have him freezing when there's work to be done. Everything was practical with this man. Every kindness wrapped in utility. Every gesture justified by need. As if admitting to simple generosity would break something inside him. The storm hit after midnight, howling around the house like something alive and angry. Kate lay awake listening to it. Lily pressed warm against her side and thought about all the storms she'd weathered. None quite like this. The fury of a Montana blizzard made everything else seem gentle by comparison. But the house held. The walls didn't shake. The roof didn't leak. Whatever else James Blackwood might be, he was a man who built things to last. She finally slept and dreamed of nothing. Morning came white and wild. The world transformed into an ocean of snow. Kate had breakfast ready before dawn. Coffee, oatmeal, bacon from the smokehouse. James appeared in the kitchen looking like he'd already been awake for hours. Stock's going to need extra feed in this cold. Water troughs might be frozen. Boy ready? He's getting dressed. Girl can help you in the house. Storm like this will need more wood brought in. Can she carry small loads? Yes, good. Idle hands in a blizzard lead to trouble. He ate quickly, mechanically, like a man refueling rather than enjoying a meal. Kate watched him and wondered when he'd last tasted anything. Really tasted it, instead of just consuming what his body needed. The oatmeal, she said. Is it all right? He paused mid-bite. What? The oatmeal. I wasn't sure how you take it. Some men like it thick, some like it thin. I can adjust for tomorrow. It's fine, but is it good? There's a difference between fine and good. He stared at her like she'd started speaking a foreign language. Does it matter? To me, it does. I'm here to do it, I'd like to do it well. Something complicated moved across his face. It's good. Better than what I make. Smoother. I added a little butter while it was cooking. Helps with the texture. Oh. He took another bite and Kate could swear he tasted it this time. Really tasted it. Thank you. It was the most sincere thing he'd said since they arrived. The day was brutal. Daniel worked beside James in the barn, learning to break ice on water troughs, to distribute feed efficiently, to check animals for signs of cold stress. Kate watched from the kitchen window when she could, her heart in her throat every time the wind gusted hard enough to make the boy stagger, but he kept going. Every time he stumbled, he got back up. Every time the cold seemed too much, he pushed through. Her son, she thought with fierce pride, her Thomas's son. Lily helped carry wood, small armloads that she treated like precious cargo. She also discovered the chickens in the small coop attached to the barn and came back to the house full of breathless reports. There's 6 of them, Mama. 5 brown ones and 1 white one. James says the white one is mean, but she lays the best eggs. Can I name them? He said you could? Well, he said I don't care what you call them as long as you collect the eggs. That means yes, right? Kate hid a smile. I think it means yes. Dinner that night was more elaborate. Stew from the preserved meat, biscuits Kate made from scratch, a simple dessert of stewed apples. James said nothing when he sat down, but she noticed he took second helpings of everything. Storm should blow itself out by tomorrow, he said as they finished eating. Then we'll have 3, maybe 4 days of clear weather before the next one hits. How do you know? Been watching this weather for 4 years. It has patterns, rhythms. He pushed back from the table. We'll use those clear days to shore up the fence line. Boy can help. You'll need to preserve the meat I'll be butchering. Enough beef to last 4 people through winter. 4 people. He'd included them in his count without seeming to notice. I'll manage. You keep saying that, because it keeps being true. The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but closer than she'd seen. Tomorrow, he said, and headed for his room. The pattern of their days began to take shape. Morning started before dawn. James and Daniel to the stock. Kate to the kitchen. Lily to the chickens she'd claimed as her personal responsibility. Breakfast together, then the day's work. Dinner as the sun set, evenings by the fire, quiet but not uncomfortable. James didn't talk much, but Kate began to read his silences. There was the tense silence when something was wrong. A sick animal, a broken fence, a worry he wouldn't share. There was the comfortable silence of a man working through problems in his head. And there was the watchful silence of someone observing, cataloging, trying to understand. "You're staring again," Kate said one evening, 2 weeks into their arrangement. James blinked. "What?" "You've been staring at Daniel for the past 10 minutes. He looked away, embarrassed. "Just thinking about the way he is with the horses. He's got good instincts. Better than most men twice his age. He loves them. Animals, I mean. Always has, even in the city. Cities don't have animals like this. Cities have enough to catch at a boy's attention. Carriage horses, street dogs, the occasional cat. Daniel used to spend hours at the livery stable near our apartment. The owner let him help sometimes in exchange for lessons about horses. That's where he learned to ride. Learned is a strong word. He sat on horses, walked them around a paddock. It was enough to give him the basics." James was quiet for a moment. "I could teach him more. If he wants, he'd want that very much." "It's practical," James said quickly. "He needs to know how to handle horses if he's going to be useful around here." "Of course, practical." He shot her a look that suggested he knew she was humoring him, but couldn't figure out how to object. Lily, meanwhile, had claimed her own corner of the ranch. The chickens had names now: Henrietta, Beatrice, Martha, Adelaide, Constance, and the mean white one she'd dubbed Empress Victoria. She'd appointed herself their official caretaker, collecting eggs each morning with the seriousness of someone performing a sacred duty. "James," she announced one morning, "Henrietta is sick." James looked up from his coffee. "What?" "Henrietta. She's not eating like the others, and her feathers are all puffed up. Chickens puff up in the cold. It's normal. Not like this. This is different puffing." Lily's face was serious. "I think she needs medicine." James stared at the 5-year-old lecturing him about chicken health and seemed utterly at a loss. "I'll check on her," he said finally. "Now after breakfast. But what if she gets sicker while we're eating?" Kate intervened. "Lily, let James finish his coffee. Henrietta will be fine for another 20 minutes." Lily subsided, but her eyes kept darting to the window, watching for any sign of chicken distress. James checked on Henrietta after breakfast, Lily trailing behind him like a determined shadow. When they came back, he was carrying a small bundle of feathers. "It's not Henrietta," he said. "It's Adelaide, and she's not sick. She's brooding. Brooding, wants to sit on eggs. We'll need to separate her from the others for a while." Lily's face transformed with joy. "She's going to have babies? If the eggs are fertile, maybe. No guarantees. Can I help take care of her, please?" James looked at Kate, clearly hoping for rescue. She offered none. "I suppose," he said, "but you do exactly what I tell you. Brooding hens are temperamental." "I will, I promise." She ran off to tell her brother. James turned to Kate with an expression that was almost plaintive. "How does she do that?" "Do what?" "Make me agree to things I never intended to agree to." "It's a gift," Kate said. "Some women are born with it." "Were you?" "No, I had to learn mine the hard way." He held her gaze for a moment longer than necessary, then looked away. "I need to check the fences," he said. "Daniel, you're with me." The first month passed faster than Kate expected. The work was hard, harder than anything she'd done before, but it had rhythm and purpose. Every task mattered. Every effort contributed to survival. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the house began to change. It started with small things. Kate found curtains in that trunk of old things, never used, still in their wrapping. She hung them in the kitchen. The light changed, the room felt warmer. Lily's chicken drawings appeared on the wall near her bed. Daniel carved a small horse from a piece of wood James gave him, and it found a home on the mantel. Kate baked bread 3 times a week now, and the smell of it had become synonymous with home. James noticed. She could tell by the way his eyes tracked these changes, cataloging them but not commenting. Sometimes she caught him looking at the curtains, like he was trying to remember something from before. "The curtains," he said one evening, breaking a long silence. "Where did you find them?" The trunk in the storage room. I forgot those were there. They're good quality. Shame to let them go to waste. He was quiet for a moment. Margaret picked them out. Before, said they'd make the place feel like home. Kate waited, sensing there was more. She left before I could hang them. I put them away and forgot. Do you want me to take them down? No, the word came quickly. No. They look. They look right there, how they were supposed to look. It was the most he'd ever said about Margaret, about the before, but Kate filed it away. Another piece of the puzzle that was James Blackwood. The month's almost up, she said carefully. We should talk about what comes next. His face closed. Yes, we should. Have we been more trouble than we're worth? The question hung in the air. Kate held her breath, waiting. No, James said finally. You've been useful. Is that all? He looked at her, and for a moment the walls dropped. Just a moment. You've been more than useful. The house it's different now. Better. I didn't expect that. But, no buts. Just, he struggled with words that didn't come naturally. Stay through winter. The arrangement works. I'd like to continue it. We'd like that too. Good. He stood abruptly. Good. Then it settled. He headed for his room, pausing at the door. Kate? Yes? The bread you make. It's good. Not just fine. Good. He disappeared before she could respond. Kate sat in the quiet kitchen, surrounded by curtains Margaret had chosen and a home James had built for someone else, and felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. Not the desperate hope of survival, of making it to tomorrow. Something softer, something dangerous. Hope that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't just an arrangement. Maybe it was the beginning of something more. But even as the thought formed, she pushed it away. James Blackwood had made his terms clear. Business arrangement. No expectations beyond what they'd explicitly agreed to. She would honor those terms, even if honoring them was getting harder every day. The next morning brought a new crisis. Daniel burst into the kitchen just after dawn, his face pale. The bay mare. Something's wrong. She's down and won't get up. James was already moving, grabbing his coat. Show me. Kate followed, Lily at her heels despite instructions to stay inside. They found the mare in her stall, lying on her side, breathing hard. Her belly was distended, her eyes rolling with pain. Colic, James said grimly. Bad one. Will she die? Daniel's voice cracked. Not if I can help it. James was already kneeling beside the animal, his hands gentle on her distended belly, despite their urgency. Kate, I need warm water, lots of it. Daniel, help me get her up. We have to keep her moving. The next 6 hours were a blur of desperate effort. Walking the mare in circles when she'd rather lie down and die. Dosing her with medicine James mixed from supplies in his workshop. Watching, waiting, praying to a God Kate wasn't sure was listening anymore. Kate brought food they didn't eat, coffee that went cold, blankets when the temperature dropped. Daniel never left the mare's side, talking to her constantly in a low, steady voice. That's it, girl. Keep walking. You can do it. Just a little more. James watched the boy with something that might have been pride. He's got a gift, he murmured to Kate during a brief rest. The way he is with her. Can't teach that. He loves her already. Dangerous thing, loving animals. They don't always survive. Dangerous thing, loving anything, Kate said. Doesn't stop people from doing it. He looked at her then, really looked, and for a moment something raw showed in his eyes. No, he said quietly, it doesn't. The mare survived. By nightfall she was standing on her own, eating a little. The crisis passed. Daniel collapsed in the hay beside her, exhausted but triumphant. We did it, he breathed. She's going to be okay. You did it, James said. I just told you what to do. You did the work. Daniel's face glowed brighter than any lantern. Later, after the children were in bed, James found Kate in the kitchen nursing a cup of cold coffee. He saved that horse, James said. You both did. I could have done it alone, but it would have been harder. Maybe too hard. James sat down across from her, something he rarely did outside of meals. He's the kind of person you want beside you when things go wrong. Like his father, Kate said softly. Thomas was like that too. Steady in a crisis, the kind of man who held things together. You miss him every day, but missing him doesn't help my children. doesn't keep them fed or warm or safe. She set down her cup. So I do what needs doing, and I miss him when there's time. Is there ever time? Not yet. Maybe someday. James was quiet for a long moment. The thing about Margaret, he said slowly, like the words were being pulled from deep underground. It wasn't just that she left, that she died. It was that I never saw it coming. The complications, the bleeding, I thought we had time. I thought, he stopped. You thought you could save her. I was an engineer, I solved problems. Built things, fixed things, but I couldn't fix that. Couldn't build a solution. Couldn't engineer a way to stop her from dying in my arms while I stood there useless. You're not useless, James. I was that night. The baby came too early, too fast. Margaret hemorrhaged. The doctor didn't arrive until it was too late. I held her and I watched her die, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do about it. Kate reached across the table and took his hand. He didn't pull away. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't change anything. No, but it means we're not alone in the grief. He looked at their joined hands like he wasn't sure how they'd gotten there. Kate, he said, about the arrangement, about staying through winter. Yes, I want you to know, you're not just useful, you and the children. You've made this place feel like it was supposed to feel. Before, Kate's her hair now hard-hammered. James, I'm not good at this, at saying what I mean, but I wanted you to know. In case, he stopped. In case what? In case something happens. In case you leave. In case I mess this up. He met her eyes. I don't want to mess this up. Neither do I. They sat in the quiet kitchen, hands still joined, and Kate felt the careful walls she'd built around her heart begin to crack. This was dangerous. This was more than a business arrangement. This was the beginning of something she'd sworn she wouldn't let herself feel again. But James Blackwood's hand was warm in hers, and his eyes held something that looked like hope. And Kate was tired of running from hope. Tomorrow, she thought, tomorrow I'll think about the dangers. Tonight, I'll just hold his hand and pretend that this can last. December came with a vengeance. The snow fell harder now, deeper, turning the world into an endless white that seemed determined to swallow everything. Kate had thought she understood winter. She'd been wrong. 3 feet overnight, James said, coming into the kitchen with snow crusted on his shoulders. More coming. This is going to be a bad one. How bad? Bad enough that we need to bring extra wood in today? Enough for a week, maybe more. Daniel was already reaching for his coat. I'll help. You'll do more than help. James's voice was gruff but not unkind. I need you running the south shed while I handle the barn. Can you do that? The trust in the question wasn't lost on Daniel. His face went serious, adult in a way that still caught Kate off guard. Yes, sir. Don't call me sir. Makes me feel old. Yes, James, they worked all day, all 4 of them. Even Lily helped, carrying smaller pieces of kindling, stacking them carefully by the kitchen stove. By nightfall, the house was fortified, the animals secured. Everything that could be done, done. Now we wait, James said. The storm hit around midnight. Kate had heard storms before, but this was something else entirely. The wind didn't just howl, it screamed. The house didn't just creak. It groaned like a living thing in pain. Lily woke crying, terrified by the noise. Kate held her close, murmuring reassurances she wasn't sure she believed. Mama, the house is breaking. No, sweetheart, the house is fighting. Remember what James said? A noisy house in a storm is a strong house. But it sounds so angry. It's not angry, it's determined. There's a difference. A knock at her door made Kate jump. James's voice came through the wood. Everyone all right in there? We're fine. Lily's scared. Tell her the roof's held through worse than this. Built it myself. Overbuilt it, actually. Could probably handle twice the weight. Kate relayed the message, and Lily's trembling eased slightly. He built it strong, Lily whispered. Very strong, because he was going to have a family, Kate thought. The question pierced something in her chest. Yes, sweetheart, he was, but then he didn't. No, then he didn't. Lily was quiet for a moment. We could be his family now, if he wanted. It's not that simple, Lily. Why not? Because he's afraid, Kate thought. Because I'm afraid. Because families aren't built on business arrangements, no matter how well those arrangements work. Get some sleep, she said instead. The storm will pass, but the storm didn't pass. It raged for 2 days, trapping them inside with nothing to do but wait. The forced proximity that had been comfortable before became something else entirely. Charged. Aware. Kate found herself noticing things she'd tried not to notice. The way James's hands moved when he worked on small repairs, capable and precise. The way his voice softened when he talked to Daniel about horses. The way his eyes followed her sometimes when he thought she wasn't looking. On the second evening, with the wind still howling outside, Lily asked for a story. "Mama's tired," Kate said. "Maybe tomorrow." James could tell one. The suggestion made James look up from the harness he was mending. "I don't know any stories." "Everyone knows stories," Lily said, echoing something Kate had taught her months ago. "Even true ones count." "She won't stop asking until you give in," Daniel said with the wisdom of an older brother. "Trust me." James looked at Kate, almost pleading. "One story," she said. "It doesn't have to be long." He set down the harness, clearly uncomfortable but unable to refuse a request from a child who'd learned exactly which expressions made adults surrender. "There was a boim," he said slowly. "A long time ago, he lived on a farm with his parents, and he thought life would always be like that. Safe, simple, certain." Lily snuggled into her blanket, settling in. But then something happened. A sickness came. Scarlet fever. It took his parents, both of them within a week of each other, and suddenly the boy wasn't safe anymore. Wasn't certain of anything. Kate watched James's face as he spoke. This wasn't a story. This was a confession. "What did he do?" Lily asked. "He survived. He went to live with an uncle who didn't want him. Worked harder than any child should have to work, and learned that the only person he could depend on was himself. That's sad, it was, but it taught him something important." "What?" James paused, his eyes distant. "It taught him that people leave. That nothing lasts forever. That if you build walls high enough, nothing can hurt you. But walls are lonely," Lily said with simple certainty. "Yes," James's voice was rough. "They are. So why not tear them down? Because tearing down walls means letting people in, and letting people in means they can leave again, can hurt you again." Lily considered this with a seriousness beyond her years. But what if they don't leave? What if they stay? James looked at her, then at Daniel, then at Kate. "I don't know. I've never found out." The room was silent except for the wind outside. Kate felt the weight of everything unspoken pressing against her chest. "I think," Lily said slowly, "that staying is better than walls, even if it's scary." "Maybe you're right," James said quietly. "Maybe you are." He went back to his harness, but something had shifted. Some barrier, invisible but present, had cracked just a little. The storm broke on the third morning, revealing a world transformed. The snow was higher than Daniel was tall in some places. The barn was half buried. The fence line had disappeared entirely. "We've got work to do," James said. And for the next week, they did nothing but dig out, repair, and restore. But something had changed. The walls James had built so carefully were developing cracks. Small things, barely noticeable. A hand that lingered when passing the salt. A smile that reached his eyes. Words that bound them together, whether he realized it or not. "We should check the south fence today. Our supplies are holding well. This is how we do things here." Are we here? Kate realized it. She noticed every shift, every softening, every moment when James Blackwood forgot to be alone. And she began to hope against her better judgment, against every hard lesson life had taught her. She began to hope. One morning in late December, Kate was preparing breakfast when she heard raised voices outside. James's voice, low and controlled. Another man's voice, louder, more aggressive. She moved to the window and saw a stranger on horseback at the edge of the property. Well-dressed, expensive coat. 3 men behind him. "Daniel, stay with Lily," Kate said, and went outside. The man on horseback was in his early 50s, with silver hair and the kind of face that came from years of getting what he wanted. He sat his horse like he owned the world and was merely allowing others to exist in it. "I'm not interested, Van Horn," James was saying. "The ranch isn't for sale. Everything's for sale, Blackwood. It's just a matter of price. Not this, not to you." The man, Van Horn, noticed Kate approaching. "And who's this? I heard you were living alone out here, my housekeeper," James said quickly. "Mrs. Hartwell, housekeeper." Van Horn's smile didn't reach his eyes. How convenient. Tell me, Mrs. Hartwell, do you know about your employer's past? Kate looked at James, saw the tension in his shoulders. I know enough. Do you know he made his fortune in the Colorado silver mines? Do you know he was my partner? Do you know he accused me of fraud when our claimed disputes went to arbitration? I know he won that arbitration, Kate said evenly, which suggests his accusations had merit. Van Horn's face darkened, sharp tongue for a housekeeper. I was a teacher before this. We learned to speak clearly. James stepped between them. You need to leave, Cornelius. Now. Not until you hear my offer. The Northern Pacific Railroad is expanding through this valley. They need water access. Your creek is the only reliable source within 20 miles. I'm prepared to offer you $50,000 for water rights and an easement. The ranch isn't for sale. I'm not buying the ranch, just access. Think about it, James. $50,000 for something you're not even using. You could go anywhere, do anything. I'm already doing what I want. Here. Van Horn's eyes flicked to Kate, to the house behind them where smoke rose from the chimney. Are you? Or are you just playing house with a desperate widow and pretending it means something? And I'll answer something. That's enough. James's hand moved toward his gun, not threatening but ready. You have 30 days to reconsider, Van Horn said. After that, the railroad will proceed with eminent domain. The territorial government is very sympathetic to progress. Very sympathetic indeed to men who contribute generously to their campaigns. That's extortion. That's business. Van Horn turned his horse. Think about it, Blackwood. Think about what you're risking for a house full of ghosts and a woman who will leave the moment something better comes along. They always do. He rode off, his men following. James stood watching them go, his whole body rigid with suppressed rage. Who was that? Kate asked quietly. Cornelius Van Horn, my former partner in the Colorado mines. We had adjacent claims. When we discovered a major silver vein, he tried to claim it all fell on his side of the property line. I had better surveys, better documentation. I won an arbitration. He lost $200,000. And now he's here. He's been buying up land in the valley for 6 months. Small ranches mostly, paying twice what they're worth. But my land is the key. Without water access through my property, his railroad depot is useless. Can he really force you to sell? With the right judges, the right politicians? Yes, he can tie me up in court for years, bleed me dry with legal fees, make it so expensive to fight that selling becomes the only option. Kate felt cold that had nothing to do with the December air. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I'm not giving him this land. Not after everything. Everything? James looked at the house, at the barn, at the snow-covered fields stretching toward the mountains. I built this place for Margaret, for our child, for a family. They died before we could have it. But I'll be damned if I let Van Horn take it for his railroad empire. You're not alone this time, Kate said. Whatever you need, we'll help. He looked at her, really looked, and something in his expression made her heart skip. You shouldn't get involved in this. It's not your fight. You gave us shelter when we had nothing. That makes it our fight, too. Over the next 2 weeks, Van Horn's pressure increased. Small things at first. Fences cut during the night. A fire in the woodshed, quickly extinguished. Cattle driven onto neighboring property. Nothing that could be proved, but the message was clear. Sell or suffer. James hired 2 men from town to help with security. Tom Whitmore and another union veteran named Cole Peterson. They took shifts watching the property at night, but Kate could see the toll it was taking on James. The shadows under his eyes, the tension that never quite left his shoulders. One evening in early January, Kate found him in his study, staring at a stack of legal documents. You should be sleeping, she said. Can't. He gestured at the papers. Van Horn filed for eminent domain this morning. Hearing is in 3 weeks. Can you fight it? With enough money, maybe. But legal fees will be astronomical, and Van Horn has the territorial judge in his pocket. Everyone knows it. Then we find another way. There is no other way, Kate. He's going to win. And when he does, I lose everything. The land, the house, all of it. Not everything. You still have. Kate stopped. What did he still have? Not her. Not really. She was just the housekeeper. The business arrangement, the woman who'd promised not to get attached. But she'd broken that promise weeks ago. Maybe even the first day, when James had looked at her with those cold eyes and asked what she needed instead of telling her to leave. James stood, moving to the window. I should have known this was too good to last. What do you mean? This, he gestured vaguely, having people here, having you here. I let myself forget that everything ends. Everyone leaves. I'm not leaving. You will. When the ranch is gone, when there's nothing left to stay for, you'll take your children and go. Find somewhere safe. It's what you should do. Is that what you want? He turned to face her. What I want doesn't matter. It matters to me. The words hung between them, heavier than she'd intended. James stared at her, and Kate saw the moment he understood what she was saying, what she'd been trying not to say for weeks. Kate, his voice was rough. Don't what? Don't do this. Don't make this into something it's not. This is an arrangement. Remember? No getting attached. Those were the terms. I remember the terms. I also remember you holding Daniel while he cried after saving that horse. I remember you teaching Lily about brooding hens like it was the most important thing in the world. I remember you telling your story about the boy who built walls, and I saw your walls cracking. He stepped back like she'd struck him. That doesn't mean anything, doesn't it? It can't. I can't. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I can't do this again, Kate. I can't let someone in and watch them leave. I can't survive it. Then don't let me leave. Fight for this. For us. Us. He said the word like he was testing its weight. There is no us. There's an employer and an employee. That's all. That's a lie, and you know it. Maybe, but it's a safe lie. I don't want safe, James. I want real. Real gets you hurt. I've been hurt before. I survived. So did you. Barely. Kate could see the war happening behind his eyes. The part of him that wanted to reach for her. The part that was terrified of reaching. The hearing is in 3 weeks, he said finally. Van Horn will win. I'll lose the ranch. You and the children will need to leave before that happens. I'll give you money. Enough to start somewhere new. Somewhere safe. You're giving up. I'm being realistic. You're being a coward. His head snapped up. What? You heard me. You're giving up because you're afraid. Not of Van Horn, not of losing the ranch. You're afraid of fighting for something that matters. For someone who matters. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You lost Margaret and you decided that was it. No more risking your heart. No more letting anyone close. Well, I've got news for you, James Blackwood. You already let us close. We're already here. In your house. In your life. Whether you want to admit it or not. He turned away, gripping the windowsill so hard his knuckles went white. Get out. What? Get out of my study. Leave me alone. Kate felt tears prick her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Fine. But you should know something. When Van Horn takes this ranch, when you're alone again, it won't be because you had no choice. It'll be because you were too scared to choose differently. She left, closing the door quietly behind her. She didn't slam it. Somehow that felt worse. The next 2 weeks were agony. James retreated into himself, speaking only when necessary, spending most of his time in the barn or his study. Kate kept to her work, kept the house running, kept the children fed and warm. But the easy rhythm they'd developed was gone. The house felt cold despite the fires burning in every room. Daniel noticed. Is James angry at us? He asked one night. No, sweetheart. He's angry at himself. Why? Because he's scared. And sometimes when people are scared, they push away the things that could help them. That doesn't make sense. No, Kate agreed, it doesn't. The day before the hearing, Tom Whitmore arrived with news. Van Horn's been buying off witnesses, he said. Anyone who might testify about his intimidation tactics. He's paying them to stay quiet or leave town. How many? All of them. Tom's face was grim. I'm sorry, James. Without witnesses, the judge will rule in Van Horn's favor. There's nothing we can do. James nodded slowly, like he'd expected this. Thank you for trying, Tom. After Tom left, James called Kate and the children into the study. I've arranged passage for you on tomorrow's stage, he said without preamble. Helena first, then wherever you want to go, I'm giving you $300. It's enough to start fresh. Find a new situation. Kate felt her heart shatter. You're sending us away. The hearing is tomorrow afternoon. By evening, Van Horn will own this place. I won't have you here when that happens. So you're just giving up. I'm being practical. You're being afraid, maybe. But I'd rather be afraid than watch you leave on your own later. That's not your choice to make. Actually, it is. This is my house, my property, for now anyway, and I'm telling you to go. Daniel stepped forward. You can't make us. I can, and I will. You said you'd teach me to ride properly. You promised, James flinched. I know. I'm sorry. You said promises matter. They do. Then keep this one. Fight. Don't give up. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. Lily's small voice cut through the tension. You're just scared. Everyone looked at her. The 5-year-old with the chicken drawings and the doll named Rose, and the wisdom of someone who'd lost everything and learned to hope anyway. You're scared we'll leave like Margaret left, Lily continued. But Margaret didn't leave. She died. That's different. And we're not dead. We're right here. We're not going anywhere unless you make us. James knelt down to her level, his face working. You don't understand. I understand you're sad and scared and you think being alone keeps you safe. But it doesn't. It just makes you lonely. Out of the mouths of babes, Kate thought. She watched James struggle with emotions he'd kept buried for years. Watched him try to rebuild walls that had already crumbled. Watched him fail. What if I lose the ranch, he said to Lily. What if Van Horn wins and takes everything? Then we'll go somewhere else. Together. We don't need the ranch. We need you. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you fixed my doll when her arm came off. I know you built a special nesting box for Adelaide. I know you carried me inside when I fell asleep watching the chickens. I know you're good. James's eyes were wet. He looked at Kate over Lily's head, and she saw the question there. The plea. Tell me what to do. Fight, Kate said simply. Not just for the ranch, for us, for the family we've become. We're not a family, yes, we are. You just haven't admitted it yet. The hearing was held in the Silver Creek Courthouse, a small building that had never seen a case this important. Van Horn arrived with 3 lawyers and a self-satisfied smile. James had Tom Whitmore and Kate sitting behind him. Daniel and Lily waited outside with Martha Whitmore. The territorial judge, a man named Silas Crawford, looked like he'd already made his decision before the hearing started. Van Horn's lawyers presented their case with polished efficiency. The railroad was vital for Montana's development. Water access was essential. The greater good demanded cooperation. James Blackwood was being unreasonable. Eminent domain was not only legal, but necessary. James's response was simple and heartfelt. This land was meant for a family. My family died before we could have it. But I've built something here anyway, something that matters. Taking it for a railroad depot isn't public good, it's private profit. Judge Crawford barely listened. I'll issue my ruling by end of day, he said. Court adjourned. They left the courthouse in silence. It was over. Van Horn had won. By evening, James would lose everything he'd built. They were halfway back to the ranch when they saw the smoke. James urged the horses faster. Kate gripped the seat, her heart in her throat. Please not the house. Please not the house. But it wasn't the house, it was the barn. Flames shot from the roof, bright against the gray January sky. Black smoke billowed into the cold air. The animals, Daniel said, the horses. James was already jumping from the wagon before it fully stopped. Daniel and Kate ran after him. The heat was intense, pushing them back. They could hear the horses screaming inside. James pulled his bandana over his mouth and started for the door. Kate grabbed his arm. You can't. It's too dangerous. The horses will die. Better them than you. He shook her off and plunged into the smoke. Kate watched him disappear and felt her world narrow to a single point of terror. Come back. Please come back. Minutes felt like hours. Then James emerged, leading the bay mare, her eyes rolling with fear. He went back in, came out with another horse, went back again and again, until all 6 horses were out, terrified but alive. By the time the last one was safe, the barn was fully engulfed. James collapsed on the snow, coughing, his face black with soot. Kate ran to him. Are you hurt? I'm fine, he wheezed. The horses. They're safe. All of them. Tom Whitmore arrived with half the town behind him, buckets in hand. But it was too late. The barn burned to the foundation, taking with it the winter hay, the equipment, the workshop, everything. Van Horn's work, Tom said grimly. Has to be. Can you prove it? No, Tom's jaw clenched. Same as always. No proof. James stared at the ruins of his barn. First my family, then my home. Now this. What else can he take? The question hung in the air. Kate wanted to say something, anything, but words felt useless against this kind of devastation. That evening, Judge Crawford's ruling arrived. As expected, he'd sided with Van Horn. James had 30 days to vacate the property. The ranch that had been built for a family would become a railroad depot. Everything Margaret had died for, everything James had built, would be torn down for progress. James read the ruling in silence, then set it on the kitchen table. So that's it. We're done. Kate picked up the paper. There was a provision she'd missed. Appeal rights remain in effect for 15 days following this ruling. James, you can appeal. To who? The Territorial Supreme Court? They're all Van Horn's friends. There's no point. Maybe, Kate's mind was racing. Or maybe there's another way. What way? She looked at the children, at the house around them, at the man who'd given them shelter when they had nothing. What if Van Horn isn't the only one who can play games with the law? I don't understand. You said Van Horn filed for eminent domain, claiming public necessity. Railroad access for the public good, yes? So what if the land is already serving the public good in a different way? What if it's already a school, an orphanage, something that demonstrates public benefit? Kate, we can't just declare the ranch a school. Why not? I was a teacher. I'm already teaching Daniel and Lily. What if we expanded? Took in other children who needed education? That would take months to organize. We have 30 days, then we work fast. Kate was warming to the idea now. We appeal the ruling. Buy time. Meanwhile, we establish a legitimate educational operation. Get affidavits from parents who want to send their children here. Show the court that taking this land would harm public education, not help it. It's a long shot. It's a chance, better than giving up. James looked at her, and Kate saw something flicker in his eyes. Hope, maybe, or desperation, or both. Why are you doing this? Because this is home. Because your family might not be here, but mine is. Because I'm tired of running. She stepped closer. Because I love you, you stubborn, wounded, impossible man. And I'm not leaving. Kate, I love you. I probably loved you the day I stepped in front of your wagon with 17 cents and 2 hungry children. I definitely loved you when you taught Daniel about horses. When you named chickens with Lily. When you told us your story about the boy who built walls. I love you and I'm staying, and you're going to have to physically throw me off this property to make me leave. The silence that followed was absolute. James stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Kate stood her ground, her heart pounding, waiting for him to say something. Anything. I can't do this, he said finally. Can't or won't. Both? Neither. I don't know. He turned away. You deserve better than a man who's lost everything. I deserve a man who fights for what he loves. Do you love me, James? That's not fair. Do you love me? He was silent for a long moment. Then he said so quietly she almost didn't hear it. Yes, God help me, yes, then fight. Not just for the ranch, for us, for the life we could have here. And if we lose, then we lose. But at least we'll lose together. He turned back to her, and Kate saw everything he'd been holding back spill into his eyes. You're sure about this? About me? I've never been more sure of anything. He crossed the distance between them in 3 strides and kissed her. Not gentle, not tentative. A kiss that contained 4 years of loneliness and 6 months of growing love and a lifetime of wanting someone to come home to. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, James rested his forehead against hers. I'm terrified. So am I, but you're right. We fight. Together. Together. The next 2 weeks were a blur of activity. Kate and Martha organized a meeting of every family in Silver Creek with school-age children. Tom Whitmore spread the word. By the end of the first week, 18 families had signed affidavits stating they wanted to send their children to Blackwood Ranch School. Kate prepared lesson plans. James started converting the West Wing into classrooms. Daniel and Lily helped, caught up in the energy of something bigger than themselves. Van Horn noticed. Of course he noticed. A week before the eviction deadline, he arrived at the ranch again, this time alone. Clever, he said to Kate, who met him at the door. Starting a school. Very clever. It's not a trick. It's a legitimate educational institution. It's a stalling tactic, and it won't work. We'll see what the appeals court says. The appeals court will say what I tell them to say. Van Horn's smile was cold. You're fighting a losing battle, Mrs. Hartwell. James should have taken my offer. Now he'll leave with nothing. We'll see, Kate repeated. There's still time. Van Horn pulled an envelope from his coat. New offer. $75,000 for the property. Enough for James to start over somewhere else. Enough for you and your children to live comfortably. Think about it. We're not interested. James is a proud man. Pride doesn't feed children. Neither does selling your soul to a railroad baron. Van Horn's expression hardened. You're making a mistake. Both of you, this isn't just about money anymore. It's about principle. James humiliated me in Colorado, made me look like a fool. I don't forget that kind of insult. So this is revenge. This is justice, and one way or another, I'll have it. He rode away, leaving Kate shaken. That evening, she told James about the conversation. He's escalating, James said. Getting desperate. That makes him dangerous. What can we do? Hope the appeal works, and watch our backs. The appeals hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later in Helena. James and Kate made the journey by train, leaving the children with Tom and Martha. The Territorial Supreme Court was more formal than the Silver Creek Courthouse. More imposing. 3 judges instead of 1. Legal arguments that lasted hours. James's lawyer, a man named Samuel Morton, whom Tom had recommended, made a compelling case. The school was real. The public benefit was clear. Eminent domain required genuine public necessity, not private profit disguised as progress. Taking the land would harm education in Silver Creek Valley. Van Horn's lawyers countered with their own arguments. The school was a sham, created to avoid legitimate legal process. The railroad served a greater public good. Economic development trumped a makeshift classroom. The judges deliberated for 3 days. James and Kate stayed in a Helena hotel waiting. The uncertainty was agony. They'd done everything they could. Now it was out of their hands. On the 3rd day the ruling came. The court had decided in favor of James Blackwood. The eminent domain claim was denied. The school demonstrated sufficient public benefit to outweigh railroad interest. Blackwood Ranch would remain in James's possession. Kate read the decision 3 times to make sure she understood. We won. James, we won. He stared at the paper like he didn't quite believe it. We won. They stood in the hotel hallway, the legal document between them, and Kate saw the moment it hit him. Really hit him. He wasn't going to lose the ranch. Van Horn hadn't won. They had a future together. Kate, he said, there's something I need to ask you. What? He dropped to one knee right there in the hallway. I know I said this was just an arrangement. I know I said no getting attached. But I was lying to you and to myself. You and Daniel and Lily, you're not just people living in my house. You're my family. The family I thought I'd lost forever. I don't want to lose you. Any of you. Will you marry me? Will you make this permanent? Kate's vision blurred with tears. Yes. 1,000 times yes. He stood, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her like she was the answer to every prayer he'd been too afraid to pray. They were married 3 weeks later in the small church in Silver Creek, the same church where Margaret was buried, the same church where James had mourned alone for 4 years. But this time the church was full of life. Tom and Martha, the families who'd sign in school affidavits, Daniel in his best clothes, standing as James's best man, Lily scattering wildflowers, a huge smile on her face. Reverend Morrison performed the ceremony. Do you, James Blackwood, take this woman to be your wife? I do. James's voice was steady. Certain. A man who'd spent 4 years running from commitment, finally standing still. Do you, Catherine Hartwell, take this man to be your husband? I do. No hesitation, no doubt. Just the simple truth of a choice made long ago, finally spoken aloud. Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. James kissed her, and the church erupted in cheers. Kate felt Daniel and Lily wrap their arms around them both, felt James pull all 3 of them close, and thought, this is what I was looking for. This is home. The reception was held at the ranch. The house that had been empty for so long was full of people, music, laughter, life. Kate stood with James on the porch, watching the celebration, her hand in his. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I'm thinking about the day I arrived, with 17 cents and two terrified children. How desperate I was. How scared. And now I have everything." She looked up at him. "More than I ever dreamed possible." "So do I." He pulled her closer. "I spent 4 years thinking I wanted to be alone. 4 years building walls. And then you showed up and tore them all down. I asked you a question that day. Do you remember? Do I want a wife or another winter alone? Do you have an answer now?" James looked at the house, at the land, at Daniel teaching Lily to dance while Tom Whitmore played the fiddle. "I don't want a wife. I don't want to not be alone. I want you. Every stubborn, brilliant, fierce part of you. I want mornings with coffee you make perfectly. I want Daniel lecturing me about engineering. I want Lily naming things that don't need names. I want the noise, the complications. That's good, because you're stuck with us now. Best thing that ever happened to me." They stood together, watching their family, watching their future unfold. The ranch that had been built for ghosts was finally home to the living. The school that had started as a legal strategy was becoming real, with classes starting in the spring. Van Horn had left Montana, his reputation destroyed by the court loss. Everything had worked out in ways Kate never could have predicted. That cold October morning when she'd stepped off the train with 17 cents and a prayer. But she'd learned something important. Hope wasn't something you found. It was something you built. One day at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of courage leading to another, until suddenly you realized you'd created something that would last. 6 months later, Kate stood in the same spot, her hand resting on her growing belly. Their child, due in November. A new beginning for both of them. James came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, rested his chin on her shoulder. "Happy?" he asked. "Terrified." She leaned back against him. "But happy too. We'll figure it out, together." "Together," Kate agreed. And they would, because that's what families do. They face the fear, they build the hope. They choose each other, every day, no matter what. The sign at the entrance to the property said it all now. Blackwood Ranch School, James and Catherine Blackwood, proprietors, educating Montana's children since 1886. Kate had come to Montana with 17 cents and nowhere else to run. She'd found something far better. She'd found home. She'd found family. She'd found love in the most unexpected place, with the most unexpected person, in the most unexpected way. And she'd never let it go, because some things once found are worth fighting for, worth building for, worth every risk and every fear and every moment of uncertainty. The winter they'd survived together was just the beginning. The rest of their story was still being written, and Kate couldn't wait to see what came next.